Welcome back to Between Two White Coats, a podcast designed to help you be the healthiest version of yourself. I'm Dr. Michelle Plaster, a family medicine doctor.
And I'm her co-host, Amber Foster, a family nurse practitioner. In our combined 30 years in medicine, we've seen a lot.
We're discussing key issues surrounding health and wellness, answering some of our biggest questions, overcoming health obstacles, and giving patient-centered advice in hopes of educating you and providing the tools you need to live a healthy life.
If you find our podcast helpful, please consider subscribing so you don't miss an episode. And don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review. This will help other people find our podcast.
Thanks for joining us. We look forward to serving you.
Welcome back to Between Two White Coats. Today we have Alicia with us, who's a nurse practitioner, but she's also one of our yoga instructors here. We're super excited to have her. But we're going to talk about wellness trends today. So there's lots of things that are trending, and so this is like the hot topics for 2025. So Alicia, tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us about your family. What do you like to do?
Sure. So I am Alicia Whitley. I'm a family nurse practitioner. My husband and I, we have 6 kids, and
I'm already tired.
I know. Yes.
Would you like to take a quick nap before we go on?
6 kids.
Okay, I need to know their ages because I feel like this is important to know.
Yes. 18, 16, 11, 9, 7, 6.
Miss, very amazing. That is a lot of work. I'm super impressed.
It is. Well, it's kind of like we don't have as many as the Duggars, but the older ones tend to the younger ones. So, and we have a farm, so we've got goats, chickens, pigs, and so I'm very much like go outside. I'm the go outside mom because there's things to be, to
like
play with outside.
Yes.
And there's 6, so you need them to be out of the house.
I need them to be outside.
Yeah.
So
let's just be honest.
As soon as that temperature goes above freezing, or if it's less than freezing but sunny outside, hey, you guys need to go outside. So we, I love all things wellness, and I'm a workout freak, and I love helping patients live their longest, healthiest lives, and I walk the walk. So.
Is that something that triggered? I'm just curious because that's a really specific, and so sometimes, which might be entirely too much, but is there something from when you were younger or even from your nursing career that was okay, this is not working and I'd rather do all this.
I love that.
Yeah. Because that is, what you do is kind of niche and
Well, and it's so not American medicine.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Where call it something, give it a pill, call it something, give it a pill.
Yeah.
And so
it might be something horrible, so I hope I'm not bringing
No, not at all. So I was a nurse for about 14 years before I became a nurse practitioner, and I worked in all sorts of areas as a nurse, and I saw some great things. I also saw some really sad things, and it was really after I started having kids, and I also was taking care of my aging mother. So being a part of that generation where we take care of our children, plus we take care of our elderly parents, and just kind of watching my mother decline and knowing how I felt and seeing that, I never wanted my children to have to go through watching me become a frail old lady and not being able to play with them and things like that. And so I really started getting more interested, and I was always into fitness yoga. I've been doing yoga for 20 years, but the wellness and the longevity piece came from watching my mother kind of struggle during her end of life and not wanting to go down that road myself. And then the more that I learned about wellness and perimenopause and changes that women go through, because then I started going through them too, and I was like, wait a second, if I'm going through this, then I know there's millions of other women that are going through it who don't have the knowledge that I have. So one of the biggest things that I do, for instance, on my social media is just post information so people can, even if they don't come to me as a client or a patient, at least they're getting something that hopefully will help, that will resonate with them and help them to make healthier choices.
And what's your Instagram? I follow you on Instagram, and I recommend everyone follow you on Instagram. You have so much fun.
It's radiate.health
Radiate.health.
on Instagram. Yep. And you can find me on all the social medias, but it's a mix of
kind of. Put your farm life on there.
I was yesterday.
Because I know that you Shelly sent me your stuff, and so I just automatically followed it. But I don't know that I paid attention to farm things.
Yeah. Yesterday I was just posting Jack and Diane, my 2 little piglets.
My dream in life is, I joke about this, but I would love, I want to be a farmer.
Yes.
But my husband's like, no, you like the idea of it. You don't want to do any of the work.
And let me tell you,
vicariously live through you.
when it is 8 degrees outside, you don't want to be
Yeah,
a farmer
exactly.
because they all have to be taken care of.
Yeah. But I don't really want to do the work, so if you could post that, that'd be really helpful.
It is. I do. So I post that. I tell people that I live very happily in between evidence-based medicine and I talk to trees.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
and it's all important. I go on walks in the woods. I put my feet on the grass. I talk to my animals. I tell a frog I have a problem, and then the frog jumps in the pond, and I'm like, bye, problem. So, but I also like to stay up to date on all the most, the newest research about GLP-1s and, menopause treatments and things like that. So I think it's not an either or for me. It's both are important, and there's a place for both.
And I love everything you're saying in that it's really your life. Like you've decided that wellness is and decision making and how you spend your day is what's going to give you both quality and quantity of your life for tomorrow and for today.
Yeah.
And you want to share that with other people, and you want to help people in however many days they have left on this earth to enjoy them and to take good care of themselves.
Yeah.
And so you really are our wellness guru. So we just knew we had to tag you into this episode on the wellness trends.
Because Shelly and I are not trendy.
We are not trendy.
We find trends once they're leaving.
Yes.
So we're like, oh, that was a trend? Who knew? It's so great. And so we're glad that you're here.
Yes, the TikTok.
The Tiki Talk. That's
Yeah.
what Shelly and I call it.
Oh, yes.
So let's go into some wellness trends. I think that one thing that we've been talking about, and we're offering it through our wellness center, so we become as much experts as you can on it, is NAD plus. NAD or NAD plus, and it's called plus not because it's and also, but because it has a charge. It has a positive charge. It has a proton. And so NAD is in our bodies. It's in every living thing. It's a coenzyme that exists in hundreds of different biochemical equations. So any of us who have had the distinct privilege of taking a biochemistry class know about NAD and NAD plus. NAD takes a part of the electron transport chain, and that is part of mitochondria and building ATP. We all know mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell, as our high school biology classes would have us learn, and that it makes ATP, which is energy. And so it stands to reason that NAD would give us more energy. And so a lot of people are trending with NAD and getting energy, whether that's a regular energy for people who may have chronic fatigue or other issues. And let's face it, I ask patients in their wellness visits, how's your energy? And if you had to have anyone say, it's the best, everyone could probably...
One of the most common complaints is, I'm tired.
I'm tired. I'm dragging.
I'm tired.
And who wants to drag through their life? Like, you can't bring your best self if you just feel like you're dragging all the time. And so many reasons why we end up there, from bad sleep to high stress to diseases to not making good life decisions, not talking to trees and getting our stress out and all that good stuff. But people want more energy. And so NAD is absolutely part of the chemical reactions that create energy from a physiologic and biochemical standpoint. NAD also helps protect DNA. And so this is something when we're talking about, something that's definitely having a moment is longevity medicine. People saying it's not about your lifespan, it's about your health span. And you're hearing a lot of people, and people are getting a lot of fame who talk about this, the Peter Attias, the Andrew Hubermans, and great podcast. And I would highly recommend that people, tune into those. But the longevity medicine is saying, how do we live longer and live better for longer? And so we all want to be 90 and healthy.
Yeah, I don't want to live to be 90 and not be able to do anything.
No. And I don't want to go shopping for a nursing home ever. And nor does anyone else. So, how do we keep ourselves well into old age? So the idea also for NAD is that it protects DNA. So we know cells are constantly turning over. And as we age, they mutate and they're more likely to become cancer cells, or they're more likely to just be less healthy cells, less functional cells. We want to keep young, healthy cells. And so the theory behind NAD also is that it may protect us in aging. It may protect health span, so that you actually, we have a lot of NAD when we're young, and over time we naturally have less. So the theory behind it is that if we can have this thing that we have in our 20s at the amount that we had in our 20s, that we would protect our cells and we would be stronger. There is evidence that shows, then this is rat science evidence, experiments in mice and rats, that shows that it increases skeletal muscle, which is also such an important part of aging healthy. Dr. Gabrielle Lyon, another a podcaster and an author who has a lot of space right now and a lot of attention, says that skeletal muscle is the organ of longevity. And so if we want to maintain our skeletal muscle, protect our cells, we need this NAD. A lot of what's going on with NAD is in theory. We don't have a lot of research that supports that it is going to improve longevity. However, people are using NAD, and so we can say what happens in the short term. How do you feel? What are the outcomes for short-term outcomes? And there are good animal studies to support that it keeps mice and rats stronger. It lets mice and rats live longer. And if you're listening to this and you're a mouse or a rat, then I would highly recommend that you use NAD. However, if you are the humans, we don't know yet. We just don't know yet. But Alicia and I were talking about this the other day, and I said I'm 53, and it's going to take a long time for these human studies to happen, especially if we're talking about aging and longevity. What do you do to see if people age well? You watch them over a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so when you take an animal that has a very reduced lifespan, you can say, oh my gosh, it added 40 days to the life. That was a third longer lifespan. Well, with humans, you got to watch someone for 30 years to see that happen.
Yeah.
And at age 53, I don't want to learn at 75 that I should have been doing this at age 50 and then go, wow, I wish that research would have been available to me. So a lot of what we're doing with NAD plus is we're extrapolating what makes sense. And we're saying, well, in theory, if we have more of this when we're younger and it does all these things and we want to do those things into older age, that this should work in longevity.
This should improve health. Like that's the other thing. Like you don't want to do harm. So it doesn't appear that it's going to hurt you.
Exactly. And so really, it's very natural. It exists in our bodies and it lowers at different times. And there are certain things that we do to ourselves that make NAD levels very low. And one of those is alcohol consumption. So NAD is also being used in detox programs. We have seen that when we get NAD levels back up more naturally, it really helps people to get back to baseline as they are recovering and getting clean. The dosing of NAD is different for a younger, healthier person than an older person because of your baseline NAD. For a person who's healthy versus a person who's sick. But Alicia, what are I know you have done some research with NAD.
I use NAD.
You use NAD.
I use it.
What is your personal anecdotal experience and what are your thoughts on it?
So I will use NAD Plus when I have a big workout coming up. I usually use it 1 to 2 times a week. It's a subcutaneous injection. I give it to myself at home. There are places that will do IV injections of NAD Plus, but that is very time consuming. Side effects can be a little rough when you try to do it that way.
Yeah. And so there's a lot of the IV hydration places, and we've looked at it ourselves because we do IV hydration in our wellness center. And we have offered NAD IV, and I've recently decided to no longer offer NAD IV as we move forward, but to instead switch to sub-Q. What I'm finding in the research, and again, the research is kind of all over the place here. We're wanting for more on the research front. But what I'm finding in the research is if you really want to have the longevity of NAD, then getting an IV once a month isn't going to have that frequency in your system that you need. But instead doing like a sub-Q twice a week would be that small dose, more frequent, giving your body what it's used to. This isn't something that our body's used to having in like a burst in short frequencies, but instead it's something that we should have all the time. So that makes more sense to do a sub-Q. Also, NAD Plus cannot be taken orally. It doesn't exist in an oral form. It won't get out of the GI tract. It'll be completely degraded, and it has very low bioavailability orally. There are some NAD precursors NR and NMN get converted to NAD, and those exist orally. However, there's still a lot of research that's saying, well, how much gets converted? And there's not a lot that's been done that says, if you take this, then you end up with this amount of NAD levels in your system, and particularly in your cells. That's hard to look at. And so it's really kind of extrapolating. We know this is a precursor. We know it gets converted, but we don't know how much. And so if we really want to try to do what's as clean and what makes the most sense, it would be to actually take NAD, not the precursors too. And so then that leaves you to either IV or sub-Q. Some places do it IM. My research has shown that sub-Q is more effective and safer. For NAD IV, you can get very nauseated. You can feel like you have the flu. It typically lasts 10 or 20 minutes, and you have to infuse it really slow. So you're talking about staying in an infusion center, an IV bar for at least an hour 45, if not over 2 hours. That's a big commitment. And then you're talking about this kind of bolus and then none for a while. And so I do think that the more therapeutic approach from all of my research on it would be sub-Q once or twice a week. So if you're looking at or doing NAD, I think that's the research supports that a little bit better than the go to an IV bar and get it once a month or every couple months. If you are doing, if you can access it through an IV bar and you have an upcoming triathlon or something like that, then that might be a good idea for the energy source.
Who's doing triathlons? I mean, I know there's people. But the average person.
You know, I've tailgated triathlons. My friend from med school does triathlons.
It's so cool. You get to go to really
and his wife and John and I go and we tailgate the triathlon. And so that is
that is the most Shelly John thing I've ever heard.
Triathlons don't get me healthier. I'm just cheering for people, and I'm all in, and I'm all there for their well-being, but not my own. So yes, people do these things. They do. So, and Alicia is probably one of these people who does the really hard exercises. So when you're gonna do you have a big event or something going on, then you'll do sub-Q. And so you'll do it twice a week for like that week or two. You do it kind of.
So I will do it. I'll do it before a workout or before, and honestly, I think a lot of the good that NAD Plus does is kind of behind the scenes. So like helping with cellular detoxification, helping with kind of immunity responses, but the initial boost of energy you get and the initial focus that you get from taking a sub-Q injection of NAD Plus, I feel it instantly. And I think that people, that's one of the things you kind of have to warn them about, because you do feel it. You feel it going in. You feel an immediate like whoosh, and you know you've taken it. But because it needs to be replenished so quickly, it doesn't last a very long time. So that's why we dose it 1 or 2 times a week.
And how long would you say it lasts for you? What do you feel when you're taking
I feel the effects of it for about a day, but I know behind the scenes that it's working for longer than that probably. I think that, like my husband, he doesn't do triathlons, but he does do like the mammoth marches where they go like 20-mile hikes and that craziness. That's crazy.
I love it.
That's far. I don't even like to drive 20 miles.
But so like he would take it before he would go on one of the marches. He might do like an IV fluids, but also take one like the NAD Plus. I think a lot of the good that it does, like I said, is behind the scenes, but we won't know until more research is put into it, and who knows when that would happen. But I will say anecdotally, there's a show on TV called Landman, and Billy Bob Thornton plays this very like stressed out oil man, and he's got a very important job. And like the first episode, it showed him doing his NAD Plus and his B12 injection.
It's the wellness trend of 2020.
And I have looked at Billy Bob and thought he needs to indulge in some
needs all the
wellness
help
trends.
He can get.
He needs some wellness trends.
If it's good enough for Billy Bob, it's good enough for me.
That's right. And you said a couple of things that I want to highlight. One, cognitive and focus. People will use NAD not only for energy, not only for muscle recovery and best performance for an athletic event, but people will also use NAD for mental focus and cognition. And I like to ask the people who we are working with who are using NAD about their antidotal experiences and how personally it affects them. And one of our nurses, who's very analytical and super intelligent, has attention deficit disorder, and she's had it for a long time, and she is medicated for it and necessarily. And she really does great with her ability to focus and sustain a task with her attention deficit with NAD. And she's like, I don't intend to stop taking it because it helps me so much with my ADHD. And so I think, that's there are a lot of different things. And I think from that respect, My recommendation, as Amber said earlier, it's safe. It's already in your body. As we age, we are dropping off the amounts, and so we're really just kind of replacing. To me, it's sort of supplementing. It's, we have vitamins, but they're in our body. But if we think we don't have enough, we give a little more. I don't know if we know about how we wash out all of the NAD, but there is nothing that says that we're, really going to not be able to wash out if you're using it in safe amounts. There is a little bit of recommendation on hepatotoxicity. And so remembering liver. Yep. And so thank you. And so that it can be toxic to your liver. And if you are going to use it regularly for more long-term, that you might want to monitor liver enzymes to just make sure, especially since the research is still sort of pending on a lot of this. My very strong recommendation on all these wellness trends, particularly when you're injecting something into your body, is that you do it under guidance of a trusted health practitioner. Yeah. There are med spas and other places that will just be like, here's all the testosterone and here's all the NAD and what do you want in your IV? I'll give you whatever you want. And that doesn't mean it's safe and that doesn't mean it's smart. And so, one of our motivations in having a wellness center is that you can meet with someone who can say, no, we're not going to do that because that's not safe and first do no harm. And so you do have to be careful about your dosing on NAD. More is not better. Yeah. This is just like prescriptions and other things. More is not better. There isn't an unlimited supply that is safe. You want to make sure you don't have excess. It can hurt your liver if you do. You want to make sure that if you're using it long-term, that there's some monitoring involved. And I think working with a wise clinician will make sure that that is happening. And that's certainly what we're doing here. But I do think that NAD is something that holds a lot of promise. And Amber and I were talking before we started recording, and we were like, let's try it. Let's try it.
I mean, could we?
And we are not on trend. And we are also, there are people that are in our practice who are like, give it to me. I'll try it. I'm not that person.
I'm not either.
No.
Oh, see, anything that I offer, I've tried it, I've done it, and I can tell you how it feels.
Yeah. And even when I needed to start a statin, of which I've started zillions of people on, I was like, do I really need this? Like, all this stuff seems like it's for other people, not for me. I just don't do a lot with that stuff. But I certainly feel like NAD is safe and that it could be beneficial, and I'm not getting younger. So we're going to try it.
I don't know, because we're not really social media people. I mean, we are, but you know what I'm saying? Like, we should, follow ourselves.
We have a brilliant marketing team that can follow us in social media because we can't figure it out ourselves.
I don't know. Yeah, that's going to be great.
Okay, so we're going to try it. This is our commitment. We're going to try it. We're going to share on social media.
Okay, girls, how are you feeling? Since she could be the coach for it.
Okay, there we go.
Since she's already been on it.
Yeah, that's right. And she's so much more well informed.
And she is.
Yes. And so NAD plus, is it a good idea? I think it is. Mm-hmm. Are we going to find down the line that this is something that helps with longevity? I think we will. Do we know that without question right now? No. Yeah. We cannot say all the research supports that everyone should jump on this. However, I think it's something worth trying. So
I see a lot of ins and outs for 2025, like what's in and what's out. And I think NAD plus is an in.
Yeah, NAD plus is in right now. Yeah. It's a lot of conversation around it. Google search it. There's a lot of things. And so, I do think that it'll be interesting to see what comes of it. Mm-hmm. But things that add energy, help with recovery, and potentially have a longevity benefit as well. Yeah. Doesn't sound like there's a whole lot of bad there.
Right.
Yeah. And I do think, like, even Andrew Huberman on Huberman Labs podcast talks about he takes NMN, he has taken NR, he's done NAD IV, and he talks about his experience with it. And he says, anecdotally, I feel like this is what is right for me, mm-hmm. but I can't say all the research supports it. But I do think smart people are jumping in on this, and so we want to be smart people who jump in on this. So we're going to give it a go. We're going to give it a go. So this is I think an interesting NAD and NAD plus is an interesting conversation for trends in wellness. There are lots of other trends in wellness. So I want you to stick with us for our next episode where we are going to list off. And I'm telling you, when Amber was telling me some of the things, I was like, what are you talking about? This is a trend. Why are people doing this? And so if you would like to hear about, what was it? Taping your lips?
Mouth taping.
If you would like to hear about mouth taping, then I want you to come back into our next episode because we're about to jump into some stuff that maybe I'm not going to be trying, like the NAD plus. Yeah, exactly. So
That's an out.
Wellness trend step 1, NAD plus. I think we're all in a thumbs up there. I think we feel, and we're going to try it. And hey, look, when Smart Alicia says I'm doing it and I feel good,
Do it.
then peer pressure has worked on us. We are on board. We are good. We are there. So NAD plus, we're giving it a thumbs up. And
You might feel like running a marathon.
I don't know, and that in and of itself would be a miracle for.
I might do more than tailgate the triathlon. Yes, I did do the run part of a triathlon.
You did.
I did. I didn't do the swim or the bike, but I do have a T-shirt that says triathlon, and I go, yeah, I did it.
But you did also run.
I did. I ran.
Yes, you did.
I ran most of the time. So stick with us for our next episode on more wellness trends.
We like to leave you on a good note, so here's today's Tell Me Something Good. Something good is extended family. Not the people who you see every day, but the people who you get excited to see because it's not an everyday privilege. Also, the family you choose. This may be the people that you call aunt and uncle, and they're really no relation whatsoever. But these extended people who treat and love us like family and our extended family, they are something good. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, take care of yourself.